Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel and also my first video, which is going to be an album review of Enter Shikari's A Flash Flood of Colour, which I have here. Yeah, just to give you a little history on Enter Shikari and sort of how I discovered them and that sort of thing, because I'm sure you don't really need a history lesson on Enter Shikari. They're quite famous, I'm sure you know a fair bit about them. I first heard of them when they released Take to the Skies, which is when more or less everyone heard of them because it generated so much buzz, was covered in Kerrang and all that sort of stuff all the time. But yeah, the first song I heard was Sorry You're Not a Winner, and first time I heard it I wasn't all that keen on it. I sort of thought it was pretty alright, a bit like weird. It was certainly maybe heavier than anything I'd really heard at the time. I was kind of young and wasn't really into anything else but, you know, Linkin Park and stuff like that, Bullet from the Valentine. So yeah, it was pretty different to the stuff I was listening to, but as time went on I sort of liked it more and more, and you know, I got a hold of Take to the Skies, and I thought it was, you know, some pretty interesting stuff going on at the time. I mean, they were one of the first people to do the whole synth with metalcore, you know, like the whole trancey, sort of dancey, like drum and bassy type stuff. So it was, at the time, I thought it was a pretty good album. Some of the standout tracks, like, you know, Mothership, I thought was great. OK Time for Plan B is probably still my favourite song from that band. I think that's an excellent song. Every time they play it live, you just go nuts. So does the rest of the crowd too. But there you go. After that, they released Common Dreads. Now, I didn't quite understand why, but no one seemed to really like Common Dreads as much as they should have, in my opinion. It was, in my opinion, the best album they've made. It was incredible. Like, I loved the intro track, Solidarity, like, you know, going in from Common Dreads, and I thought it worked so well. Some of the parts in it were really well written. The lyrics weren't exactly great, but, you know, they've never been particularly great, in my opinion. The whole political stance they have and everything is slightly ill-informed, but as far as, you know, in Take to the Skies, the lyrics were still like pretty fun and just silly, and you couldn't really take them that seriously, so it didn't really matter all that much. But yeah, that was probably the only weak point I'd say on Common Dreads. However, as far as the other stuff goes, the actual musicianship on it, that album was, you know, much better. It was more interesting, there were more things going on in the album, like they had an acoustic track and stuff like that on there. But anyway, without further ado, Enter Shikari's A Flash Flood of Colour. The first song I heard off this album, as I'm sure was the same for all of you, was Snake Pit. And the first time I heard it, I thought the intro, the drum and bass intro, worked really, really nicely, with Rao sort of talking over the top in an MC sort of style, but not quite rapping or MCing. I thought that worked really, really nicely, and then it goes into this awesome riff after this little sort of break. And I thought that riff was great, the hook's really catchy, but I didn't really think it was that good a song because it was just a little bit too repetitive for me, and also that breakdown in the middle just isn't very good. There's no lying about it. Like, why would you ever put the lyrics, yeah, we're nice guys until we're not? Doesn't that apply for, you know, 99% of things? But anyway, ignoring that, as time went on, I sort of found myself liking this song a bit more and more each time because it was really catchy. It sort of stuck in my head. I loved the intro and the outro, the sort of drum and bassy type bit. But anyway, after that they went on to release another two singles, which was Arguing with Thermometers and Gandhi Mate Gandhi. And I found myself really liking those, more so than Snake Pit, I'd say, even though they were a little less, you know, maybe not quite as heavy and a bit more sort of synth based. I still found myself really, really liking those tracks. But anyway, eventually, yeah, Flash Flood of Colour came out. I pre-ordered it actually and won some tickets to the Borderline show in London, which was awesome, but I'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, pretty standard CD, just got your artwork and stuff like that in there. And yeah, I listened to the whole album, and first time, I can honestly say it was an incredibly mixed opinion. I thought everything I'd already heard off of it, the singles and the track Meltdown, were great. I loved all of it. I thought it was some of the best stuff they've ever written by quite a long shot. But I found it to be a little bit boring on first listen. The song Search Party didn't really do anything for me. Stalemate was just kind of like a bad gap in the fence. It wasn't particularly great, and one of the things that really put me down was the lyrics. dear God, the lyrics. Really kind of ill-informed, I suppose, the best word to put it, like politically based lyrics, and it just didn't work. Like, I mean, sure, they'll be fun to sing on live and that sort of thing, but I kind of missed the whole fun of it. Like, it's sort of evident in Gandhi Mate Gandhi and in Arguing with Thermometers, there's still a lot of fun in there, but it needed a bit more of that throughout the whole album, in my opinion. But back to the stuff I did like I said, I really liked System into Meltdown. I thought that intro was a great idea, sort of referencing back to Common Dread's intro with the same intro as Common Dread's did. That sort of synth line just getting louder and louder progressively. And except they changed it up, obviously, as they should do. They had like a melodic synth line coming after a while. Then Rao started telling this, I suppose it's almost a story of this like house on a cliff. And there's waves below slowly eroding this cliff, and obviously the house is going to fall and crash and burn and everything, and it will be lost and whatnot. But they kind of ignore the warnings. They kind of ignore that fact. They don't really care about it. And eventually, obviously, that happens and it just falls and crashes. But he sort of goes on. Drum beats come in, some other interesting layers get laid on top of it, and in the end, it's a pretty solid track. It goes straight into Meltdown. Meltdown was a really interesting track, I thought. When I first heard it, I wasn't too keen on the dubsteppy sort of breakdown in there because it was missing a sort of punch. It just sounded a little bit flat for me, and I think that was because the guitars weren't really turned up in the mix enough. The bass was certainly there, and the drums were really well written, but it just didn't. It needed the guitar layered over the top of it to just give it that little extra little bit. But regardless, after that, you've got the sort of post-standard, post-hardcore part that Shikari will put in there. You have the chorus, which is incredibly catchy. Then it sort of goes back into the dubstep breakdown, which again I wasn't too big a fan of first listen. And so yeah, I thought that was a pretty solid track, which is actually now one of my favourite tracks, especially after hearing it live, because I had those guitars in live, and it just, it really sort of, gets me going. It's a really nice little track. I quite enjoy it. After that, Snake Pit, I've already sort of said my opinions on that. Search Party, one of the ones that I thought was a bit boring. It didn't really do anything for me, especially on first listen. It's sort of grown on me a bit more now, but maybe it'll grow on more, I don't know. But just didn't really do anything for me. There was a part in the middle that was just really out of place, not particularly great. After that, Arguing with Thermometers, which I actually think is probably my favourite song on this album at the moment, especially. That breakdown at the start, it's kind of weird. It's got like heavy guitars in it. I really like Raoul's vocals over the top of it. It's got some synth, but it's not necessarily overpowering. Really well written thing. Then after that, it sort of goes into this dancey bit, which I really like. It just works. It's fun. Like I said, Shikari need to keep that sort of essence of fun, and it just works really well. The rest of the song sort of goes on. There's a build up to dubstep breakdown, which I will say on this album they've slightly overused perhaps, but in this song it works really well. Then it carries on, and there's the ending. There's a breakdown at the end. It's a pretty solid track, one of the better ones I've written, I think, ever. Then after that, Stalemate, not a very great track. I've already said this, but kind of a bad gap in the fence in my opinion. Then the next track is, in my opinion, probably the best song they've ever written, Gandhi Mate Gandhi. First time I heard this even, I didn't think that much of it. It was a bit too disjointed. It wasn't really a song, it was just kind of a bunch of parts that were stuck together and made something of. Didn't really have many guitars in it, which, well, it does, it's quite heavy, but it wasn't too evident. There was no riffing, it was just sort of chugging, and I wasn't a big fan of it at first, but with time I started to love it, and now that song just gets me absolutely pumped. I love it when the guitar's kicking after that initial sort of like synth and bass line, when it all kicks in with vocals and everything. I think it works great. The ending especially, just when it comes in, it just hits hard, hits home and hard, and it just sounds great. There's not really much else I can say. It's one of their better tracks, certainly the best on this album I reckon, especially at the moment. Then after this song I felt the album went downhill, if I'm honest. There's Warm Smiles Do Not Make You Welcome here, and it was just a little bit, you know, it had some nice guitar work over it, especially at the end, but just did nothing for me really. I found the whole track a little bit boring, a little bit almost predictable in a way, but yeah, I'm sure people will disagree with me on that. After that, Pack of Thieves, incredibly catchy. If you like big hooks and sort of pop songs, you'll love this song. Not a fan of it myself though. The next one was actually quite a good track. Hello Tyrannosaurus Meet Tyrannicide. Really interesting stuff. Probably one of the more experimental tracks, sort of Shikari pushing what Shikari can be. And a lot more guitar in this one. There's kind of a ranting at the start, you know, like just him going on about standard stuff really, about empires falling and referencing a Tyrannosaurus, and this whole thing was a bit weird, but after that, really great track. Well, I really like the intro too, but it comes in with this sort of almost Dillinger-esque type part. It's not as technical as Dillinger, but it's certainly got some influence there somewhere. I think it helps that someone from Sixth was helped producing this record, but yeah, that's probably where that influence came from. At the end, again, I say it's sort of overused, but in this song it just works. That sort of a dubstep breakdown at the end. Again, this one actually had guitar with it, so it had that little punch that I think that the others needed somewhat. And after that, I believe it's Constellations. Yes, Constellations, and that's the last song on the album. Which is sort of this, you know, Raoul speaking about he's waiting for these two trains, or he's waiting for one train, but it doesn't sort of show it's the train for sustainability, and the other one's the train for destruction, I think, something like that. And it's kind of, I suppose I can't really say it's cliche, because I can't see anyone painting a picture like that to do with, you know, this type of thing, but it's kind of cliched in the way, like, you know, oh, we shouldn't be heading towards that way, we shouldn't continue our ways and head towards destruction of the earth and, you know, screwing it up so bad that we're never going to be able to use resources and blah blah blah. But you know, he goes on about waiting for sustainability, it never comes, delayed and all this sort of stuff. But I felt that track was a little bit pointless almost. It had quite a nice progression, I quite like the ending as well, but it just bored me, if I'm honest. It was a bit predictable. As far as lyrics goes, it was as poor as the rest of the album, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think that's more or less everything else. I don't really think there's anything else to say about Flash Flooded Colour, other than, yeah, as far as positives go, even the bad stuff that I didn't like, I felt it was sort of average, but for what I know Shikari are capable of, it was poor. Like, they could have put a bit more effort in. I will say that, to be fair, they did experiment in this album quite a bit. All the tracks are fairly varied. I mean, I say they overused the dubstep breakdown, it's my third time saying it now, but it's, you know, it was still a fairly varied album. It had a lot of different sounds going on there. It's kind of interesting, nicely layered, very well produced as well, I'll say that much. I'm not going to bother with going through the bonus tracks. They came out ages ago, Destabilizing, Kel Surprise. I love both those tracks. There's not really anything else I can say. Really catchy, great tracks. There's two Snake Pit remixes, which was pretty cool. This on the deluxe edition, by the way. But two Snake Pit remixes that worked really well, I thought. They played one of them live at Borderline, actually. Speaking of which, I may as well talk about that now for a bit. Just run on about it. Yeah, basically, what they did was anyone who pre-ordered the album would get entered in a draw for, depending on where you lived, for a album release gig. I believe they did one in Kingston, one in London, which was the first one, and there was, I think it was Leeds Cockpit, I could be wrong there, but I think it was. And I won tickets to the Borderline in London. I won a pair of tickets to one of my mates. We showed up about 15 minutes after the doors opened. Got in there, it was a really tiny venue, probably one of the smaller ones I've gone to. I think 200 people max capacity, about that. And yeah, no barriers, whole crowd went mental. They haven't lost it live, which is one thing I was kind of worried about. Not them losing it live, but just how this album would incorporate with the other stuff, because I feel like their other stuff is just stronger, it has more essence, it's just a slightly more organic sound as well. This album was a little bit too heavy on the synths and the samples, whereas the others still had that, you know, you could tell there was guitar in there. It was still a bunch of dudes making music in a room. It didn't sound, this album sounds a little bit heavy on samples, heavy on effects, and that sort of thing. But anyway, I wasn't sure how this album would come across live, and I'm so pleased to say that it came across so well that I actually think the newer stuff sounds better than the old stuff live. Like I said, the better newer stuff is the best stuff they've written, and live it really comes across. But even Search Party and Stalemate sounded great live. There's not really much else I can say. I got on stage quite a few times, crowd surfed, there were crowd surfers everywhere. Tons of people were singing along, tons of people were singing along to the new songs as well, which I was really glad to see. Human Pyramid during Sorry You're Not a Winner. The set list read something along the lines of System into Meltdown's intro, which kind of makes sense, first song was on the album. Into Gandhi Make Gandhi, Sorry You're Not a Winner. They played Fan Fed for The Conscious Man, which I was really glad to hear live. I've seen them a few times, but I hadn't heard that live before. So I was pretty pleased to hear that in their set. They ended on Snake Pit. They played sort of a remix and then merged it in with the actual song, which I thought worked really nicely. There was a stage invasion during the chorus of that. It was really great, big sing along. Rao doing standard stuff, running around giving mic to random people, jumping in the crowd as much as he can, just getting everyone pumped up sort of thing. Really sort of great stuff. I actually think that's probably the best Shikari show I've ever been to, and it's probably one of the best shows I've ever been to end. It was really great, the energy was intense, the crowd was really in it. It was just a scene of chaos, but with a dance as well. There were people dancing everywhere and hardcore dancing as well, so it was a really weird mix. Seeing all these people on stage dancing some dubstep, jumping in the audience, and then going nuts for, I don't know, Sorry You're Not a Winner and having a circle pit or whatever. So it was really, really great to see those two things combined. Rory jumped in the crowd a few times. It was just a really great, high energy, and I think the main thing here is what the Flash Flood of Colour was sort of missing, that the live show still had, was that fun. It was just really, really fun. I wouldn't have... While I was there, I didn't feel like I wanted to be anywhere else. That was the only place I could possibly be to have that much fun. On a Monday night, nothing else to do, perfect. That's all you want to do. It was just incredible. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop ranting now. That's my review of A Flash Flood of Colour, and also a live review of The Borderline, I guess. If you take it as that if you really want. But yeah, I will be going off now, and I'll see you soon, hopefully. We'll see about that. Bye.